We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no parties. We exist where power tells itself it is untouchable. We exist where silence is enforced, where fear is managed, where truth is delayed until people stop asking questions. Today we are speaking again, not because it is easy, but because what is unfolding demands it. What you're about to hear is not a verdict. It is not a court ruling. It is not a final judgment of guilt. It is an examination of allegations, documents, leaks, deletions, denials, contradictions, and patterns of behavior that, taken together, form a picture so disturbing that it cannot be ignored. These are claims contained in newly surfaced Epstein-related files and reports, claims that name Donald Trump and other powerful men in connection. They are allegations, but they are not casual ones. They are detailed, repeated, documented, and reacted to by the state itself in ways that raise more questions than answers. When the files briefly appeared on official government platforms and were then rapidly removed, the reaction told its own story. Governments do not panic, delete harmless paperwork. Institutions do not rush to erase information that poses no threat. The speed and coordination of the takedown is itself part of the evidence that something explosive was exposed. Journalists knew this instantly. Screenshots were taken, archives were saved, copies were uploaded. The internet, once again, refused to forget. The content of these materials, according to multiple journalists and commentators who reviewed them before deletion, includes testimony summaries, internal emails, FBI reports, and survivor statements connected to Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking operation. Within those materials are allegations involving Donald Trump. These allegations are not new rumors pulled from nowhere. They echo patterns that have followed Trump for decades: his documented friendship with Epstein, his public comments about liking women on the younger side, his ownership of properties where Epstein recruited, his long history of sexual assault accusations, and his demonstrated willingness to use power, money, and intimidation to silence accusers. One of the most chilling elements referenced by reporters is an email attributed to Epstein himself, in which he suggests that Trump may soon be questioned because a girl alleged Trump had sex with her at Epstein's residence while she was underage and claimed to have a witness. That single line, if authentic, explains an enormous amount about the fear and urgency surrounding these files. It suggests not only knowledge, but expectation. It suggests Epstein believed Trump's exposure was a real possibility, not an abstract risk. Additional claims attributed to FBI reports and survivor statements describe events at Trump-owned properties, including Mar-a-Lago. These claims allege that parties were held where young girls were present, that Epstein facilitated access, and that abuse occurred. Some accounts go into graphic detail. They describe coercion, sexual violence, physical assault, and the presence of other adults who enabled or ignored the harm. These accounts are horrifying to read, and even more horrifying to consider in the context of how power functions. Survivors describe being children surrounded by men who knew they were untouchable. It is essential to say this clearly. Allegations are not convictions, but allegations of this magnitude from multiple sources involving patterns of behavior, corroborated locations, and consistent methods demand investigation, not erasure. What happened instead was erasure. The Department of Justice removed the files. Officials went on television to reassure the public that no one was being protected, and yet the files were gone. Todd Blanche, a senior Justice Department official who previously served as Donald Trump's personal attorney, publicly insisted that the DOJ complied with the law and did not protect Trump or anyone else.
Very quickly, can you assure the American public that President Trump, like every other prominent person whose name came up in relation to the Epstein files, that all documents, photos, and anything relevant to him connected to the case are being released?
I mean, yes, I can assure that we complied with the statute, we complied with the act, and there is no, we did not protect President Trump, we didn't protect or not protect anybody. I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents. And there's nothing I can do about that. But President Trump, of all the people in Washington, D.C. and around this country that have said for years the same consistent message about Jeffrey Epstein is President Trump.
That statement alone should have triggered alarm. In any functioning democracy, the appearance of conflict of interest is treated as seriously as conflict itself. A man who defended Trump in prior legal matters now asking the public to trust him when Trump's name appears in files about child exploitation is not transparency, it is audacity. When pressed further about whether the identities of men who abused girls would be revealed, the response shifted into semantic fog.
So, just to clarify, is the public going to learn the identities of the men who abused the girls with the information that you're releasing? And if not, why not? And then I have a quick follow-up.
I mean, you just baked in an assumption into your question that I have never said and I don't know to be true. Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? Like, what does that mean? I mean, I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, they're the men who abused the young women through Epstein's.
Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July. If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them.
And this is where the pattern becomes undeniable. When the accused are powerless, the system moves swiftly. When the accused are presidents, billionaires, donors, and political allies, the system suddenly becomes confused, cautious, overwhelmed, and slow. Donald Trump has consistently minimized the Epstein network, portraying it as a limited scandal involving a few bad actors. That narrative collapses under even minimal scrutiny. Epstein operated for decades. He trafficked girls across state and national borders. He maintained relationships with politicians, financiers, royalty, and intelligence-linked figures. This was not a lone predator. This was an ecosystem, and ecosystems survive because powerful participants protect each other. The logic behind the cover-up is simple. If names are released, those named can be subpoenaed. If subpoenaed, they can be compelled to testify. If they testify, they may trade information for leniency. And if that happens, the entire structure collapses. Trump, more than most, understands this. His political survival has always depended on loyalty enforced by fear. Silence is the currency. Exposure is the threat. This brings us back to the first Trump presidency. That period remains under-examined in this context. What actions were taken behind the scenes? What investigations were slowed or redirected? What evidence was classified, sealed, or quietly buried? What communications occurred between federal officials and individuals connected to Epstein? It is implausible to suggest there was none. The absence of evidence, in this case, looks less like innocence and more like successful obstruction. Officials have acknowledged the existence of millions of pages of material related to Epstein. Millions. Photos, videos, emails, documents. They claim only a portion is relevant or releasable, but to make that determination, they had to review everything, which means they know exactly what exists. And if redaction is the concern, that process has already been demonstrated. Fully redacted documents have been released before. The explanation does not hold. It does not pass even a basic test of logic. Some observers have speculated that the brief release of these materials may not have been accidental, that someone inside the system wanted them seen. That leaks are sometimes the only way truth escapes when formal channels are compromised. Others argue the opposite, that incompetence and chaos within agencies tasked with protecting political interests allowed the files to slip through. Both explanations are possible. Neither is comforting. The question of Jeffrey Epstein's death resurfaces here for a reason. Officially ruled a suicide, it remains one of the most widely doubted conclusions in modern American history. A man with connections to intelligence agencies, compromat operations, and elite criminal networks dies under constant surveillance in a facility with multiple failures occurring simultaneously, just as his cooperation could have exposed dozens of powerful figures. Skepticism is not paranoia. It is rational. We are anonymous. We do not forget. Save this. Share this. Talk about it. Demand answers. Silence is the shield of the powerful. Break it.